Hello beautiful ladies, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a classic book review of East of Eden. I thought it would be cool to start incorporating into my channel a series of book reviews and classics that I really love, maybe some books that are more new and not just classics, but books that I've really loved and also books that maybe I didn't enjoy so much that are also considered classics. So I really wanted to start this series and I figured I would start it off with East of Eden. So I just recently finished East of Eden and I had been wanting to read this book for I cannot tell you how long. It had been something that had been on my list for, I'm not kidding, probably 5 or 10 years. Is that possible? I mean, yeah, I think it could be. And so I just really wanted to sit down and read it, and I finally had the time. So I picked it up from the bookstore and I started reading it. And I have to tell you that the first chapter put me off a number of times. So I had a plan this time going in, because I'm not a big description person unless it's really warranted. If you start giving me a lot of description right at the top, it'll lose me pretty quickly. So I wanted to see if I could make it through that, because I knew that the book wasn't really about the description of the land and how that, you know, played into the characters. I knew that was part of it, but I also knew that the book was more about characters than anything else. So what I did was I actually purchased the audiobook on Audible. And the audiobook of East of Eden is fantastic. If you are interested in listening to this rather than reading it, I would highly recommend it. And being able to listen to that first chapter kind of allowed me to move through the rest of it. Now, what ended up happening is I probably listened to 80% of it and read about 20% of it, and it was amazing. The plot of the book is really fascinating. It traces two families, the Hamiltons and the Trasks, and you get two generations of these families, and really three for the Trasks, talking about how they are kind of reenacting the biblical story of Cain and Abel throughout the generations. So it's a really fascinating look into all of the characters' lives and how they interact and into their minds, but it's also written in an incredibly gripping way. It's really hard to put down once you've started it. So let's start off by talking about how well this book is written. This book is gripping. It starts off a little bit slow because you get a big description of the setting of where most of the book takes place, so Salinas Valley, which is where John Steinbeck grew up. But after that, once he starts getting into the characters, you're hooked, because every character is really distinct and he gives us an opportunity to look into their minds, which is amazing. The book is supposedly written from a third-person limited perspective, so theoretically there's a narrator, but in fact, you do end up in the minds of many characters, which would mean that the book was written really more third-person omniscient. So there is kind of an overlap there, but it is really fascinating to read about all these characters. There's a few big main characters. Let's talk about them. When we talk about the Trask family, we're focusing on Adam Trask, Charles Trask, those are two brothers, and then Adam Trask's children, who are Caleb and Aaron. It really focuses on the relationship between the two brothers and how that parallels the biblical story of Cain and Abel. The way that Steinbeck chooses to address these characters and their struggles is really moving, because you feel for everyone in the book. It's not a Wicked situation where he's trying to make the good guy bad and the bad guy good. It's more trying to understand the people who have bad motivations. But you know that he's not doing the wicked thing because he has a truly evil character in this book, and that is Kathy Ames. So Kathy Ames is drawn from the beginning as an evil character, and I think that it's really fascinating that he does have a just, straight, evil character. There are certain people in this world who are just evil, and for him to just show a character as evil, I know it's controversial. A lot of people don't like that he did that. They wanted to see her have some sort of growth in any direction, but there are some people who do not change and who are just bad. So to have that written, I think is a really cool and interesting exploration of her and her character and her mind. And then you have the characters who do struggle with having evil impulses and don't want to have evil impulses. And it's a beautiful picture of human nature. And I think that John Steinbeck really accomplishes what he set out to accomplish in this book. The struggle between Cal and Aaron is probably what makes the crux of this book so fascinating. It's interesting because they made a movie of East of Eden. It's one of the only movies that James Dean was ever in. And they only focused on the relationship between Cal and Aaron, which really only makes up like the last third of the book. So much more of the book focuses on Kathy and Adam and their relationship, and on Sam Hamilton. So the Hamilton family is supposed to be kind of a contrast to the Trasks. The Trasks have a lot of strife in their family. There's a lot of struggle. And the Hamiltons, the kind of head of the family, is a good man. And it's interesting to see how Steinbeck has that play out in his family. He doesn't just say, oh, there's a good man, and so everything is easy on that side of on that side of the story, that whole family now has it easy. Not at all, which I think is great, because it doesn't make it so, okay, here's one side, here's the other side, one's black, one's white. Not at all. It's just, this is a man who was good, and his children are struggling with also being good, whereas you have on the other side, this is a family where the head of it, not Adam, actually his father started off and was dishonest, and how did that play out through the generations? But the struggle for many of the characters in the book is how to deal with not being the favorite of their father. And in this book, it really plays out as a fascinating study of how you need to learn how to deal with that, and it can't necessarily be solved. Besides just the characters themselves and how they process information, the other interesting and incredibly wonderful part of this is the interpersonal relationships between all the characters and how they all interact. And I ended up just almost crying at the end of the book because it really is so moving. And if you had to ask me my favorite character in the book, it would probably be Samuel Hamilton. He goes out of his way to do so much good for the other people in this story. But I also really understand Adam Trask's character and the struggles that he goes through. It's just every character you can really identify with, even though maybe not necessarily Kathy, but her parts of the story are fascinating. So it kind of makes up for the fact that you might not necessarily understand her and like relate to her, but she's also just a really, it's a wonderful insight into just an evil character. In a way, I would say that this book is sort of like Russian literature in that you get so much of the characters' inside workings and trying to understand their minds. And in a way, not much happens, but a lot happens. So it's just kind of an interesting look into this world and Steinbeck's kind of own study of how does good and evil coexist in this world? How do we as humans struggle with our bad impulses and make better choices? And what do we do in the moments where we aren't the chosen one, where we aren't the favorite, and how do we respond? So I just think this is a great book. Let me know in the comments, have you read this book? What did you think about it? Would you be interested in reading it? Would you like to see more of these kinds of book reviews? And are there any other books that you would like to recommend to me that I can talk about on my channel? Please let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Please subscribe to my channel and blog if you haven't already. Head over to my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and follow me there, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!